Mini enthusiasts, how are you doing? Welcome back. I hope you're well and I hope you're having a great day. Today we're back on the Racing Green and we're going to be replacing this Flitch panel here. And people often comment on make jobs look easy. That is definitely the case in this week's video. For some reason, everything just went to plan. I was in the zone, I was focused, I was motivated. The welding went really well. Everything just lined up really nicely. And it just all slotted into place with no problems at all. And it went really, really quickly. So strap in, hold on tight. This is gonna be a quick one. Hope you enjoyed today's video and catch up with you again next time. Cheers. Right, we're back again. So that rust treatment stuff, it goes like completely black, which is, I'll say, that's similar to what Cure Rust does actually. Cure Rust goes purple. But that's all on there now. Like I said in the previous video, I will have to clean up these bits to put weld through primer on them, but we'll get everything lined up, get everything cut, clean it up, and then we'll hammerite the cavity. A problem I've got at the moment is the Flitch panel. If I put it on there and line it up with the fresh air vent like that, so it's lining it up with the hole for the fresh air vent where the bolts go, it is completely out everywhere else. It's way too high up there. The bolt holes don't line up for the doors, and it's just not right. In fact, if I think if I put it where it should be, yeah, it doesn't come down far enough. It's all over the place. If I line it up with the bolt holes, it looks much better down the bottom. But the hole at the top is out. So when I've done these before, I've always gone by the bolt holes. So I think I'll go by the bolt holes and then I'll probably have to cut out that fresh air vent to get it right. So bear with me, I'll put you on time lapse and we need to do a bit of fettling and fiddling to get the cut right.
Hey Mini enthusiasts, how are you doing? Welcome back. Just cleaning off some welds there at the top of the A panel where the A panel joins to the door aperture, and I'm just cleaning off some welds on the inside of the door frame there where the brace bar was fitted when we were doing the seals and the floor pan. Now what I'm doing here is just fitting the panel. Like I mentioned, the fit of these panels are not great. You do have to mess around with them a bit. Once I'm happy with it, I'll be able to draw on the back to get my cut lines right and mark out where the metal needs to be cleaned off and where the weld-free primer needs to go. Just trial fitting the fresh air vent there. So although the hole for the fresh air vent doesn't line up properly with that new panel, the fresh air vent still fits in there because the actual fresh air vent is much smaller than the hole itself. But I will neaten up that hole and get it back round again. There we go, that's marked up now to clean off. And obviously I'll need to weld in some captive nuts for the screws that hold the fresh air vents in. So now just going along with a strip and clean disc, just cleaning off that Furtan sort of corrosion protection rust treatment. So I'm just cleaning it off where we need to weld because obviously it will act as insulation and prevent the welds from arcing across. Bit of weld through primer on now. Now, Weld 3 primer usually dries pretty quickly, but it's cold in the garage, and just to help it dry a bit quicker and accelerate it a bit, I just use a hot air gun. Does speed things up. And now I'm going along with another strip and clean disc, just cleaning up the metal wherever I'm going to weld to. Now this is I think it's Zintek coated steel. It's either Zintek or galvanized, but either way you want to clean off that coating, because when you heat it up, the zinc vaporizes off the metal and gives off some horrible fumes, which if you inhale, not good for your health at all. So you need to avoid that, preferably welding in a place that's well ventilated. I'll probably talk about it a little bit more when I start the welding, but you can actually see where the zinc vaporizes. It leaves white trails on the metal. And a few weeks ago when I was welding the sills, I was obviously doing a lot of welding, leaning right over the top, and it made me feel really short of breath in the evening. So you need to be careful. Now obviously just masking up the areas we don't want paint to get on. I'm going to spray that cavity with some Hammerite Smooth-Right, just to give it a bit more protection. No one will ever see inside there. It doesn't need to be green body coloured, but yeah, I know it's good. The Hammerite usually takes a good 10 to 12 hours to dry, but I'm in a bit of a rush today, so we'll give it a blast with the hot air gun, get it sort of surface dry, and then we'll weld. But you need to be careful because obviously the paint is flammable. I mentioned in previous videos, if you're doing any welding and restoration work like this, ideally you want to be removing anything flammable from the car first. So the gas I use is an argon CO2 mix. They're 220 litre bottles. I think they're at 100 bar. They're more expensive than the mini mig bottles you get from like Halfords and that, but they are much better. They last probably 3 times as long as those mini mig bottles. Flow rate I try and use as low as possible. If you're welding outside, you obviously need more shielding gas and a higher flow rate. But indoors, I can get away with about 2 litres a minute, which gives around about an hour and a half of continuous welding. So like I say, much more cost effective than the mini mig bottles. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, everything was just going nicely here. I was just blasting through the welding here. Trusty spot welder out again, just give the tips a quick clean up and a quick dressing. And like I've mentioned before, it just saves so much time having a spot welder. If you look closely, you can see those white trails I'm talking about. That's the zinc vaporizing on the steel, so I've not cleaned up the metal well enough there. And like I say, you do not want to inhale that. It's not very nice at all, so just be mindful of that. I've learnt my lesson here, so every sort of half hour or so I do open the garage door now just a little bit, you know, let the fumes out, a bit of fresh air in. In fact, there's a really good example there. I hadn't cleaned off that bit of metal at all, so you can see loads of the zinc coming off. Might have seen there, actually there was a bit of flame coming up. That was from the paint on the inside of the cavity. Like I say, that is the only problem when you're painting there. You're putting a flammable material there. And then down at the bottom here, I did have to build up the weld a little bit to get it to meet the sill, and I've got a bit of a gap at the bottom there, but what I do is put a little slit in the sill there, just bend over a little bit of metal and then just weld up the gap. So as I mentioned, these flitches are okay, but I've had the same problem whenever I've done a flitch, that it hangs over too much at the bottom. So like I do here, I just heat it up until it's cherry red, bend it over, get it in the right place, and then we can go along and spot weld the join. Last bit to do now, and that's obviously just filling in that gap at the top of the panel there. So Kellogg's cornflakes, bit of cardboard aided design. I always like to get my sort of welding patches perfect, but I watch some other YouTube channels. I mean, one I enjoy watching is Yorkshire Restoration. They've done a Mini in the past, and they're doing a Datsun, I think it's a 260Z or something like that at the moment, but it is horrendous. It's rotten as a peach. But they tend to sort of tack the metal in place and then just knock it about, cut it, slit it, and manipulate it into place. I say I tend to try and get it perfect and then weld it in.
Right, apologies, that would have been quite a long time lapse because I was just in the flow. Everything was going really nicely. New bottle of gas on the MIG welder, and I don't know, sometimes it just seems to weld really, really nicely. Key part of it is getting back to nice clean metal and having good metal to weld to. So yeah, I just cracked on with it. It is so quick having the spot welder. It just makes it so much easier. I've not bothered linishing anything back off at the moment. I will do. We'll have a linish off. I just wanted to show you before I do it. And I'm not going to time lapse linishing it off because it just makes a horrible noise. So we've obviously got our seam there. If anything, I probably didn't leave a big enough gap. There's a bit of distortion in the panel, but it's the inner wing. It's a Flitch panel. It doesn't really matter. You always want a little bit of a gap there, round about a millimetre. It will stop the panels warping so much, but then the problem is it becomes a little bit more difficult to weld. So if we got the seam down there, spot welds through onto the floor pan, spot welds up onto the inner hinge panel, spot welds to the hinge panel. We got seam welding on the dash rail, top and bottom. We've obviously got our repair section in there, used a bit of cardboard aided design there. Like I say, there's a bit of cleaning up to do. Like on the bottom of here, I've got to clean up the welds. Front of the sill, clean up the welds. And this generally needs trimming back a little bit. They're too wide originally. Up the top there, it needs sorting out because it should fold over and meet in there, but there's a big gap there. But that's pretty normal. You can see our spot welds on the inside of there. And then let's just have a look on the inside of the car. Bit of light. I mean, it's all a bit messy. It all wants tidying up and cleaning up. The only bit I had to do was put an extension piece in here. That inner sill, that floor pan there, didn't go right to the Flitch. So I had to make a corner bracket in. And obviously there are welds up inside. Seam weld. And the welds up the top. Hopefully I've not burnt that loom. I think it's okay. It's difficult to not get the loom burnt. But yeah, looking pretty good. I just need to clean it all up now. And yeah, it's another milestone done. It's a big chunk of metal, the Flitch panel. Quite, like I said as well, quite a complicated piece to weld on because there's so much going on. Next up, we've got to turn our attention to that. Don't ask me what's going on at the front here. That is a right mess. They have put a new front panel on, but they've left the old ears in place and just welded over the top of them. Same again here, I think they've just welded over the top. So same as on the other side. I'll probably just cut the whole section out, remake a bit. And then, yeah, finally I'll just show you underneath, because if you'd seen me doing the other side, these Flitch panels always seem too long. They always come down too far. So you'd just see me, I heated it up, get it cherry red and then knock it over, and you can get it into the right shape. But yeah, pretty pleased with that. Like I say, I'm just going to linish that back now, and then job done. Onto the inner wing repairs next, and then I'm not quite sure. I might Gravitex the seals. I might get the seals protected, get a bit of paint on them. But thanks for watching. Thanks for joining back and watching again this week. I've got a load of mess to sort out. Please remember to give it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing, and drop me a comment, words of encouragement, or if you want to know something, I'll try and help you out. I do read all the comments, and I really appreciate your views. Thanks once again. Catch you next time.